Hi everyone, here are my top tips for how to revise maths GCSE. So tip number one, and this is the biggest tip I could give you, is do past papers. Do every single past paper you can get your hands on. First of all, start with your exam board. And obviously do the ones that are post 2015 because that's when the GCSEs changed. But if you've saturated them, if you've gone through every single one of them, then go through others. Okay, so tip number one, go through every single past paper you can get your hands on. So the reason this is such a good strategy is because it helps you get familiar with the way that questions are asked, because a lot of the time you do actually know how to do the maths, you just don't know what the question is asking you. So the more you see these questions, the more you find that they repeat. So past papers, 100%, do as many of them as you can, and that will literally rocket fuel your revision by a million. So past papers, and use the mark schemes to see if you've got it right. Also use the mark schemes to see what the examiner is looking for, what steps you might get working for, and also to check if you've got it right. Now, if you don't necessarily know how to do the question, then look at the mark scheme, look at what the answer is and think to yourself, can I figure this out myself? So yes, you can go and learn the topic, but if you don't know what the topic is, a really good strategy is to just think, okay, this is the answer. This is the steps that are provided in the mark scheme. Can I figure out a way to get to this answer by myself? So that's a really good strategy. And if you're the kind of person that likes ticking things off, you can just list, like all the past papers that there are, and then have a little box and a little tick, or maybe you can highlight them just so that you feel that sense of achievement. So every single one that you do, you're one step closer to getting all of them done. Also, when you're doing your past papers, what is really helpful is if you actually did them in a test condition and you tried it, and then you scored yourself and you looked at the mark scheme at the very end, and then hopefully the more past papers you do, the higher you see your score doing, and it just helps with the feeling of accomplishment and seeing how much you're progressing. Tip number two, so once you've done your past papers, you're probably going to realise that there are some topics that you just don't understand. So once you have a list of the topics you don't understand, they are the ones that you want to focus on. What a lot of people do is they just try and revise everything, or they buy a revision guide and they start from page 1, which is probably things that you already know. Don't waste your time on things that you already know. Practice them in the past papers, but don't spend time revising things you already know. Focus on the things you don't know and try and learn them. There is so much resources out there. Just type in, I don't know, say you don't know vectors, type in vectors, go to like 5 different websites and make notes and try and figure it out, or watch my YouTube videos. Tip number 3 would be to watch my YouTube videos. So what I've done is I've labelled every single video that I do, I put the name of the topic in the top right hand corner. So if you're watching something and you're not sure what the topic is, then I've solved that problem for you. Then get really focused on that topic, try and find out everything that you can on that. And that's tip number 3. So those topics that you have identified that you really don't get, research them on every possible platform you can, in revision guides, in textbooks, ask your teachers, Google it, and just find out everything you can about that topic. Make revision notes, try and find those topics in exams, look at the mark scheme and see how they might have worked that question out. Or just ask me, drop a comment and I'll make a video for you. Tip number 4, and this is something that I find really helpful, is to actually listen to some music while you're revising. Now, I'm not saying listen to, pop music that has lyrics in it. Ideally, it's going to be classical music. There's actually so many studies that have been done that suggest that when you listen to classical music and you're doing maths especially, that your brain just gets more focused and finds it easier to absorb new information. So if you are up for that, that would be really great. It would be really beneficial personally, I think. And if you do find classical music and you've never listened to classical music before, then drop a comment below and say what your favourite classical piece is. I'll start off by saying Vivaldi, The Four Seasons is a great thing to start with. So tip number 5 is to reward yourself. So whether it's treating yourself to some tasty food like strawberries, or going for a walk, or doing something fun, just reward yourself. And also make sure to take regular exercise breaks, doing some stretches, doing some yoga, just moving around so that you're not sitting for long periods of time. Just try and make sure that you are looking after yourself. So make sure that you're eating healthily and that you are exercising, ideally at least half an hour a day. And an exercise doesn't have to be this crazy like push-up, squat kind of regime. Just a half an hour walk outside is absolutely fine, or just running up and down the stairs, or just doing some stretches. Honestly, just Google some yoga on YouTube and just have a go at doing some stretches. It's amazing how much energy is stored in the body, and just stretching it out in a different way kind of releases the burden, especially if you've been sat cooped up on your computer all day long. So that is a huge piece of advice. And also eating healthily, so making sure you get all of the brain foods, things like walnuts, eat fruits, eat vegetables, all the basic things. But what people tend to do when they come to exam season, they get really stressed, they start drinking, well, in my day it was Red Bull, now it's, I don't know even the name of the fizzy drinks, but things that are essentially really bad for you, and they get your body like really higher wired, and it's just not the best combination. So if possible, try and eat as healthily as you can. And tip number 6 is to actually teach someone else. So the best way to show that you've learned something is if you can explain it clearly to someone else. So a lot of people seem to think that they have to study on their own. The best thing to do is to get together with a group of friends and study together and help one another and learn from one another and share your ideas. So try and teach it onto someone else. It might be your parent, it might be a friend. But if you can teach it and explain it clearly, then that shows that you've really learnt it. So that's really good. Tip number 7, make revision cards of all of the topics that you don't understand or the things that you think you might not remember. So on one side have a question or a concept, and on the other have the answer of what your ideal response would be. You can then give these to your parents, your siblings, your friends, and they can test you. Another thing, if you don't like revision cards, is to actually do a test for yourself. So just write a long list of questions that you know that you need to remember, have the answers on another page, and then go through that test regularly. Tip number 8 is actually to focus on your mindset. So what a lot of people struggle with is they think that they can't do it, or they get really overwhelmed. So just take time every morning to make some time for you to listen to something positive, something motivational, something that will make you feel like you can do it, and get yourself in a positive mindset. Because if you're stressed and if you're telling yourself that you can't do it, you're going to make life so much harder for yourself. And another little hack that I think is pretty cool is the kind of the process or the power of visualization. So let's say you're aiming for a grade 6, then just get it into your head that you're going to get that grade 6, and see yourself on results day opening that envelope with a grade 6. If you want a grade 9, then really get it into your head that is what you want. Visualize yourself opening that results packet with a grade 9 in it. Now, what a lot of people do is actually they use the power of visualization, but in a negative way. They say to themselves, yeah, I want a 9, but oh my gosh, like, what if I get this or whatever? And they run through in their brains, like opening their results and getting a grade that they don't want. And so just really try and focus on what you do want, and try and imagine yourself getting there. And then your brain kind of finds ways to make that happen. Also, just don't be afraid to reach out for help. Your teachers are there to help you and support you. Your friends are there to help you and support you. Your parents are there to help you and support you. There are people there that want to help you. So don't be afraid to reach out for help. Just obviously, when you reach out for help, kind of know what you're asking for help for, which is why having all this data in terms of past papers or topics is really useful. So I'm just going to say it one last time because I really want it to sink in. We're in April now, so now is the time to really get crunching. So leave all the revision to the side. Just do, let's say, 5 past papers, so that you have that data of what you need to focus on. And hopefully if you do 5 past papers, even if you just do like 2 in a row, you're going to see that there are certain questions that come up again and again and again. Maybe do 3 non-calculator papers in a row, so you're like, oh, those topics keep coming up. Honestly, it's the best revision method. And if you do the past papers and you've printed them off, then highlight the questions that you really don't understand, because then you have like a collection of all these past papers and all of the questions that you really don't understand. You can show them to your teacher. You could take a screenshot and share them with someone to try and explain it to you, but you have a collection of data of everything that you need help with. So it's you know, the best way to manage something is by measuring it and being aware of what you're doing. So to summarize, for maths, the most important thing is past papers. Just do past paper after past paper after past paper. Hopefully I've drilled that into you. Also, listen to some music if you can, classical music, while you're doing that. And just be kind to yourself, because there's no point in you getting yourself stressed, getting yourself worked up. But at the end of the day, exams are important, but as long as you do the best that you can, that's all that matters. Ultimately though, you need to find what works for you. So some people are visual learners, so in that case you want to do lots of maybe post-it notes and creative things and stick that around your room. Other people just need to go through the past papers and do it one question after another. You just have to find what works for you and do that. Don't try and do something that someone else has prescribed that you know doesn't feel right. But either way, good luck. And if you think you have any tips that I haven't mentioned, then drop a comment below so that you can maybe help other people as well. And just as a final note, good luck. You'll be fine. Just do your best.